Hey everyone, welcome to Should I Love with Jason Stewart, and I'm here with my guest, Patrick Kilpatrick, actor and writer now, and he has a new book called Dying for Living. He's an old friend. We met through Allison Ingram around probably 15 years ago at an AIDS benefit where I was the entertainment and you were in the audience and you were like a celebrity guest of some sort with one of your beautiful young women with you.
Yeah, Heather, I was thinking about it. That's a long time ago. Heather Salmon. She went off and became a priestess of sort of a new age religion. Beautiful girl.
Just for you guys listening, we both have terrible allergies. We're here in California, and the air is terrible here from all the fires. So forgive us if you hear some sniffles. If you need a Kleenex, you'll let me know.
I'm good.
So you've had this incredible career. I mean, a career that anybody would be envious of, in the sense that, in this business, just to be able to make a living and to be able to survive is probably, I think, one of the biggest accomplishments. I mean, films like Minority Report with Tom Cruise, Death Warrant with Claude Van Damme, Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis, Erasure with Schwarzenegger. I mean, you've been in some of the biggest action films playing villains, mostly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And certainly a career that I'm trying to follow in some ways, where your work is, I think, fairly physical. There's a real physicality to it, where mine is sort of more verbal. So I wish I'm trying to learn to be that guy. And I've always, when I met you, I took part of that in a sense into my own work. I hope you feel good about that. And I hope you sort of take that as
I do, but I think if you're a particular kind of person, you are constantly reassessing and seeing where you're going to take your life. And that's one reason why I wrote the books. There's 2 volumes. Volume 1 is called Upbringing, and I ended up with a 540-page book. So we split it into 2 books. First book is called Upbringing, lots of show business stuff in it. But the second book is called...
Now it's only 300 pages.
Yeah, the second book is about the same when you add in pictures. And then...
it's 2 books. Oh, Volume 1 and Volume 2.
Yeah, Volume 1 is called Upbringing, Sins and Confessions of a Hollywood Villain and Libertine Patriot. And the second one, which I'm sure you'll have... connection with, is called Showbiz, Wasted Talent in the Valley of Debacle.
Well, that's the one I really want to read.
Well, there's a great excerpt in this at the end to pull you into that. That's maybe 26 pages. So there's a lot of show business stuff. But the second one is all show business. And I think it was important to do this one too, because it had to show you how I got there and how it happened. And also, one of the reasons I've succeeded, I'm convinced, is because I was a writer. And I think that's really key to an actor's longevity, is having a cross-discipline with writing and producing and directing.
Did you write and produce... did you rewrite parts that you did?
Yeah, completely.
That's been my success. Also, is going in and say, somebody would say, "Oh, I don't want to do this part. It seems like something." And I always say, "Let me go in and see what they're willing to do."
Absolutely correctly. I get hired as a thug, and I'll give them a mastermind genius, because I just did a movie called Night Walk, and we filmed in Morocco, and with Sean Stone, Oliver's son, and Mickey Rourke, God, what a hybrid creature he is. And
Eric Roberts.
And Eric Roberts, who I've worked with many times.
Which is pretty easy, because he's worked more than any person in the entire world.
That's true, yeah.
I still don't know what that's about.
He does a brilliant job with cue cards.
He did the cue cards in the...
Yeah, well, in his case, you can really make allowances, because he's working sometimes 3 films a day. So you can understand why he's doing that. And
I understand it, but I still can't imagine.
It's a slippery slope I don't want to go down. But I'm on about my last 5 movies. The leading man couldn't learn their lines, so they're using cue cards. In some cases, not able to do that because of organic brain damage. But
what's the brain damage from? Well, Eric is a pothead.
wretched excess over the years.
Yeah.
Eric is a sweetheart, and
Very
again,
nice.
I make alliances for.
We used to do a radio
for him.
show one after another when I did
Yeah.
my show over at T Radio V, and he was lovely. And I did the show once with him and his wife Eliza, who I adore.
She's awesome.
And I know that he's quit, doing all that.
He does a brilliant job with cue cards. I'm not talking about him so much. And again, if you're doing 2-3 movies a day, as he sometimes is, you can understand why somebody would use cue cards.
I would definitely,
But
I couldn't do it.
a lot of these guys are it's self-indulgent and a slippery slope. I don't want to go down. I think as an actor, you've got to learn your lines and rehearse and work hard on it and stuff like that. But a lot of these people don't. And
A lot of people don't like to rehearse. I love to rehearse.
I like to rehearse. I don't normally like to rehearse with the people that I'm actually acting with. I'll rehearse with partners in my network. I mentor a large group of actors in something called an Entertainment Warrior program. And I like to work with those people so that when I get on the set, I'm so prepared and there's some element of surprise in the people that you're actually
I understand
acting
that.
with.
I understand that now too, is not giving that away. But but what about the idea of trust between you and that actor, and having, like, if you play someone, if it's your wife or girlfriend or son or daughter or best friend or something, I think you have to have some sort of communication, some connection, so you are creating things together, so you can reproduce when you're shooting. But then I understand what you're saying about.
I think that's more relevant in the kind of parts that you play. The kind of parts I play, I'm usually killing mass quantities of minorities and serial killing people and raping and looting. So
yes, I can see
the elements of trust are not necessarily.
I play some bad guys too, so I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, I start off the book with a section I call the Rapist's Lament, because I've had to do that a couple of times with people like Naomi Watts and Daphne Zuniga.
What did you do work with Naomi Watts on?
I did a wonderful television series with her called Sleepwalkers, and
I think I remember that.
And my character kidnapped her and basically hurled abuse at her for 3 days. And the funny thing about it was, I'm convinced that Sleepwalkers is the reason that Naomi got King Kong, because if you look at her acting, she's doing exactly the same thing. I'm the beastie and she's cajoling and surviving and everything else to the giant ape. And
nothing to do with the Oscar nomination right before that.
Did she get it for Mulholland Drive?
Yeah,
or something?
or the success of that.
I think they'd already filmed King Kong, hadn't they?
Well, that was a big success, and then I don't think she was nominated for that. She was nominated for 21 Grams and also The Impossible.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but didn't those things come after King Kong?
I'm not sure. Yes, they did.
But the point of it was, look, as actors, we can never give up our goals and our drives. And if you're playing a rapist or a kidnapper, I would go to the actress, in this case Naomi, and say, look, this is not me, but I have to come after you. Now, I'm not talking about physical contact. I'm talking about...
Well, you negotiate that, don't you? So both of you feel comfortable. What physically will happen? Don't you do that? For the folks at home, I think that's important for them to know that physical stuff is negotiated.
Let me put it in terms of Tennessee Williams. Okay, you take Streetcar Named Desire. If Marlon Brando is getting together with Vivian Leigh prior to the rape scene at the end and is negotiating everything with her, that may work because they can refilm, but in a sort of stage situation or something that is moving really, really fast, you can negotiate it, but you still, look, you have to do two things. One, you can't have physical contact and hurt somebody.
FYI, so I just looked it up. Remember what you're saying, but 21 Grams was before King Kong. And she had just done The Ring 2, and she had been, and Mulholland Drive certainly was before all that.
Well, then she reverted to her Sleepwalker style.
Yes.
For King Kong. King Kong was before?
It was after
Okay.
her first Oscar nomination.
She did a great job in Sleepwalkers, and
I think she's one of these overlooked actresses in terms of being to me.
I think any actress who has any longevity at all is very, very, very successful. And she's maintained it. You know, whenever I see these sort of it girls take off, I never envy them because often the period of time that they're in everything is often very, very short-lived. So
that moment of being a leading lady.
yeah, she's done a really, really great job of negotiating that and continuing on. I think that she's going to survive for a long, long time.
Well, she's so.
The point of it is, prior to the filming, she was kind of attracted to me. We were attracted to each other. After it was over, she wouldn't speak to me for 3 years because the emotional trauma of the scene is devastating, and you kind of have to go. I'm sure Vivian Leigh was not necessarily happy with Marlon Brando after Streetcar Named Desire.
Yeah, but that was not as real compared to today's standards, I would say. But I think it's interesting about that because I have, you have these moments when you're on the set. That's what people don't understand as an actor. There's this incredible connection, and because you have to have real feelings have to come up, it feels real at the moment, though we all know it's not real. But there's this weird...
You're standing outside yourself, looking at yourself to some
it happened
extent.
to me recently on a film called The Line that I did for DirecTV, where I played a anti-abortionist leader like Fred Phelps. And all these young girls who were on the other side. I'm the big Republican, guy from the 90s, in this whole outfit. And I never felt so disliked and so left out of everything. And I thought, man, this feels... Nobody really wanted to hang with me.
It's very interesting when you're responsible for everything bad that happens in the production.
How do you deal with that on the set?
I cry once in a while. I've done plays where I would go out into the courtyard and, you just have a ball because you've got to release that angst on a certain level because it builds up. When everything negative that occurs in an environment is because of the actions of your character, after a while that can be...
Especially if it's a long shoot. Mine was like 4 days.
Or a rehearsal for a play over weeks at a time. Or a run of a play over weeks at a time. So you have to cleanse that. I get a lot of massages. And it kind of cleanses that out and allows things to be pristine.
People have kept you working, nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, the villain thing is a very rich tapestry because they're not the same people. I'm very happy when you tell me that you were able to play that Republican anti-abortionist guy because that's the way life should be. People should be able to bop around and do things that they're...
Well, since Birth of a Nation, playing the plantation owner in that film, my career has changed towards... I played a lot of racist, not very nice people. I used to play rude... First, before I played prissy people, then rude people, then controlling people, and now it's more... I've gone sort of up the ladder to the worst, of doing that.
Yeah.
So now
it's funny how it goes, because for a town that's based on vision, they do the expedient thing. So they go, oh, Jason was wonderful in that show as a white Aryan supremacist. So let's give him a white Aryan supremacist for 2 years. Okay, and until you break into doing something.
But aren't you? I don't know about you. I'm just happy just to get a job working with good people.
Of course. I'm not happy if I'm saying the same bloody lines in 4 different shows. And, but the challenge then becomes you've got to make it into something completely original and cinematically arresting, even though you might have done something similar.
Well, when you're working on television, I think there's that feeling of doing that. Sometimes you feel like you're indispensable. You're just villain number 6, when you're on this show, you're the 6th man this season.
Dispensable.
Yeah.
all of us. Cary Grant.
Cary Grant found that way?
Well, we all do. It's going to end. You know, it always ends. You know, I became aware of that early on. It ends because they use you. You're a cog in a machine, and you're going to be used. And if you can maintain it for a good long time, that's great. But you better be good at reinvention, and you better be good at jumping from one agent to another right at the right opportune moment. There's a lot of things. You know, life is ephemeral.
I remember when
certainly a Hollywood career is ephemeral.
When David Paymer was nominated for an Oscar for playing Billy Crystal's brother in the 90s in a film called Saturday Night, and he got nominated for an Oscar. Sort of this character actor like me, you know, somewhat more successful, I think. And there was a thing in Vanity Fair, and he was sitting in the middle of a photograph, and it said David Paymer on call. And he was sitting in the middle of a room on the floor with all these telephones around him. And I took that, ripped that out, and I took my picture of me and I put myself over his face because that's what I wanted. The idea of more calls coming in than going out, and that's the career. That's what success was to me. You know, when the offers would come in, and I've had periods, you know, when that's happened, and I'm sure you have.
I just think God wants me to work as an actor when I'm working as an actor. So when I'm not working as an actor, I'm either writing a book or raising money for a movie or teaching. I just keep doing different things, which I think is wonderfully sanctuary providing, both economically and emotionally. It's not just we actors. Think of the great visionary directors who can't get arrested and can't get productions mounted. Or producers.
Or some people that are just, I saw an interview, or documentary rather, on Orson Welles recently.
Yeah, I saw that. Wasn't it? The documentary was far more interesting than The Other Side of the Wind.
It seemed that way.
Yeah.
It seemed that he had become, you know, with the obesity and it came fear. Because then if I see somebody drinking drugs, weight, when something happens to that extreme, you think, okay, this person is checked out, and it's about fear. I always think, you know, when something terrible happens, it's always about that.
Yeah.
And that was sort of sad to me because you wish that people would have nurtured these artists more so we could see the work that they would have in them, and why we do that, and why we will let some people move on and do anything, and some people not. I don't often understand that.
I don't either. It's just, to me, it's just destiny. I'm a big believer in destiny. But if you look upon it with a certain set of eyes, the things that I was, quote unquote, forced to do because I was down as an actor, in the end, I love the fact that I was forced to do them. Like teaching. I adored teaching and became a better actor because of teaching.
I didn't know that you taught.
Oh, yeah, I've taught for about 15 years now. I guarantee you I could help you. And I don't mean that you...
I would love it. I'm always...
the bottom line is, one thing I learned early on was, I mean, I take a look at a person individually right off the bat and look at what they're doing and figure out what the holes are in their tapestry that's causing them not to work to the highest level that they might. And there's always a hole in the tapestry. And then you figure out frugally, how do you fill that hole? And then the other thing is...
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, you move on from there to complete audition mastery. Now, I imagine you're a completely, really good auditioner. It doesn't mean that you can't be a better auditioner.
I don't think it's my best thing, honestly. Well, I think what I'm really good is...
Then you're admitting right off the bat that the portal where most work comes from, I don't care if you're James Franco and Leonardo DiCaprio, those guys end up reading often for a guy like Christopher Nolan. So you're admitting right off the bat that you're diminished capability in the chief portal.
I'll give you what I think. I think that what I love is taping my own auditions.
See, I grew up when that didn't occur.
So did I.
And I've had fun doing it, but I much prefer going into a room where the director and the producer...
See, but I don't get to do that. I have to go through the casting director, and I think that most casting directors are so completely unpresent in their... Because you're reading for either their assistant because they're busy or their associate, and they're, there's a pressure in their office to the amount that they have to do, and you only have a chance to do it once. And I like to look at I've learned so much about myself as an actor by doing it myself. I look and go, what am I doing that thing with my eye? What's that about? Or what I really notice the most is I think that something is coming across and it's not. Or this is too much.
So it's a good thing.
I can pull it back.
To me, having grown up in this other realm, where whether it was Broadway or television or a film, you went into a room and there was a director and producer, then to me, the self-taping thing screams amateur hour. But it doesn't, and sometimes and also you're going through a casting person there too.
It's also for me too, as being an openly gay person and being known for that. I don't really want them to meet me. I don't want them to see anything about me. And I want them to just see me as the character. I don't want to talk to them. And
you have to do a couple of words now and then. But I agree with you in the sense, the more handshaking you're doing, you're not there to become friends.
You go in and you have this thing that you do, and you get to be cast as this thing. And you say, I can look at you, even though you're being a nice guy now, I can see villain. I can see it. Well, just your physical stature, the way you walk, the way you move, the tone in your voice. I've always been taught by teachers, and is that be you, whoever you is. That's going to be your, and I don't exist.
Yeah.
There is no 50-ish gay parts for me.
But I think that's self-limiting.
No, but it's the truth. I rarely read for that part.
Put something.
And when I am, I don't have to read.
Something brilliant together.
Well, I'm offered that. I don't have to read for that. That's offered. But if I want to play,
but what I'm saying is, I can tell. Are you creating your own work?
I have, yes.
Okay.
I'm doing one now. Honestly, I'm working with a guy. We're playing an older couple. That's. It's a comedy.
I mean, where would Charles Bush be if he hadn't created all the work that he did?
Yeah, but I bet you I can tell you right now. Fierstein. Or Fierstein. I can tell you right now, those guys, both, and I don't know either one of them personally. I've met Harvey several times, and I've talked to Charles online. That both of them feel like they've been limited, and Harvey is a big
We're
writer.
We're all going to be limited. It doesn't matter if you're...
Well, then you don't get when you look at... What's the top number here of how many film and TV shows you've been in? And let's look at Harvey Fierstein, who's probably just as famous as you are.
Well, there's no question he's a monument, a great pillar of acting and...
Well, the Broadway theater, yeah.
Well, you do also pay a price by living in New York. It defines your career. There's lots of guys who do that. If you're there, you end up doing off-Broadway, Broadway, movies of the week, once in a while a film that's coming.
So you have close to 100 film and TV shows.
I have way more than that, 160 probably.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
On here, I'm not reading it right. Oh,
No.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, 60 films and then another television, right. 76 on one on TV and then 60 in films. Yeah, so I'm just saying I don't think Harvey Fierstein or Charles Bush can even compete with you on that level. But I bet you can't you can't compete with them in terms of the amount of shows of theater they've done.
Yeah, of course not, because LA is not a theater town.
But I think what you don't probably understand intrinsically is that when you're a gay person,
the bias against homosexuals,
especially in my age group.
From outside of that, it looks like the whole culture has become gay.
Oh, no, I understand you that.
If you're watching the Macy's Day Parade and you're watching Prom and then you're watching Summer, these shows, it seems like maybe that's because that's in New York. It seems like,
But you know what's interesting is I hear this all the time, and it's 2018, and I'm still trying to explain it to you. And not you, to people. And I think the fact that I'm still trying to explain it to you means that we have moved to a really great point, but not to the point where, I was talking to a girlfriend this morning and I was saying, God, I want to do more. I would love to be in the position where someone would call me more often for not just playing. So I get called mostly to do something that's really funny in a couple scenes, or some controlling guy, or now some racist guy in a couple scenes, but not to the point of somebody giving me a major leading role, or a major, I can't say, because I do some supporting roles, but to be offered that in that sense is to be where you are. It doesn't work the same way. I'm sort of the second choice if they can't get you. If they can't get somebody, they'll think, oh, I saw him in this, he can do that, or somebody talks them into it. Or usually, I always say it's under 40, over 40. Under 40 people don't care about anything. They don't care who you are, where you are. If they think you can do it, you can do it. The over 40 people still carry the baggage of, and this is, of course, stereotypically speaking, of, oh, Patrick, he can't play the love interest. He plays the villains. That's who he does.
Sure. So I can say that I empathize with you, and I have a choice to be bitter. All of us have the choice.
Oh, not bitter.
You can't be bitter.
I'm not bitter. I'm the luckiest guy on the planet. Are you kidding?
I suspect everybody is going through whatever they're going through, because the business is by nature. It's quite surprising. I said it before. It's a business of vision, but there's precious little vision.
But if I had a choice, I'd rather be your stereotype is a lot bigger than mine. There are 10 times more roles of who you are.
Let's look at then Gary Oldman, or look at
Gary
I think
Oldman's
it's very dangerous to compare yourself to.
You're very right.
Other people.
I just completely undressed myself. I completely undressed myself in front of all my fans. You completely stripped me down. I'm naked.
Well, I mean, I have guys who've played my minor thugs in movies, and they just won Emmys. You just have to keep hanging in there. And sometimes it has to do with, you get that one television series. Like everybody who was in Breaking Bad, they're all major now. And by the way, they worked forever unheralded.
It's one thing to hang your... Well, I think for you...
Jonathan Banks.
For you, what was it? I think it was Minority Report.
Well, no, for me, I have an interesting career, because
whenever
I do a big movie, I don't do a big movie for 2 years. I don't know what the hell that is.
No, I think that's everybody, because what happens is you go, and I realized it for myself in the same way. I did Birth of a Nation, and then everybody that hires you after that is offering you things because you're in such a big movie, and everything is smaller roles, smaller films.
And I'm really grateful for that, because the independent offers are not so institutionally typecast as institutional television. So despite the fact that we're in the golden age of television, the true golden age of television, because of streaming services and everything, they are not as stereotypical typecasting as the independent thing is great. I mean, I can play the President of the United States, or I can play
someone's dad,
a dad or a pedophile priest or something like that. And it can go, usually they're so glad to have you that they'll say, hey, what do you want to do?
Exactly. I've had that happen. I've had that happen before too. And just say, hey, or will you do these 2 scenes? We'd just like to have you in it because we think that your name is going to help sell the film.
Yeah. And then I'll say, do you mind if I improv? And they say, no, we'd love for you to.
Oh.
And I go wild.
I love it, don't you?
Yeah.
And I hate to say, respect to all you writers out there, but honestly, a lot of these films need help.
Oh, God, yeah. You take Billy Bob Thornton. This is why I tell young actors, always work on it. Billy Bob Thornton, before he Sling Blade, I could tell he was a writer, because they always had the best lines in movies. And they were not such great movies. And to some extent, Alec Baldwin is the same way.
There's a thing on somewhere that a girlfriend of mine keeps sending me, this wonderful actress, Tilda Del Toro, a friend of mine, and she sends me these things of scripts, and you see they show the movie, and then they show the script, and they show them in some of these great Oscar-winning scenes or scenes that you love, and you say, oh my God, this changed a little. And no indifference to the writer, but when you're writing something and when you're playing something, and you don't have time to rehearse it, like in the theater, something happens. and all of a sudden you say, it's because I'm a Jew, right? And all of a sudden you say that, and then all of a sudden that becomes the biggest thing ever. I was in a film called Tangerine, and I go, this one has no shoe. Now, how do you say that? This one has no shoe. Oh, this one has one shoe. That was like, this one has one shoe. Who thinks that would be, even if I saw it, that no one talks like that. But the way it was said.
Well, I come from a school that you figure out a way to say it.
But my thing is,
by the way, pitiful self-promotion, dying for living, Amazon.com, digital and hardcover.
I was just about to do that. Don't do it. Let me do it for you. This is a wonderful.
I don't mind doing it too.
No, this is a wonderful book. It's in 2 parts. This is a man who I've known probably 20 years. I'm thinking probably close to, and I'm sitting here thinking I should be in his class right now. And I'm
actually starting another one because I put it aside to do the book tour. But listen,
just for this sexy picture on the book alone, that looks like you look like I hate to say what you look like here, but you look.
My son said, my 22-year-old, who's a brilliant 6'5".
How long ago was
architect.
this taken? Is this
not so long? I just have to shave. That was doing Burn Notice.
Oh, that's what it is. Yes, yeah. The shaving makes you look so much younger.
It does. It's. I'm working on being the Wilfred Brimley of the 21st century.
Oh, I did a movie with him.
I did
in
several too.
1990, and
he's such a curmudgeon.
Oh my God! Oh my God! And I was like so excited to work with him. It was a movie starring John Voight. It was called Eternity, and the film wasn't Eternity. And he played the father or something in it. And he was so grouchy all the time. I just went over to him and I said, well, what's the story? And then he finally laughed, And he was just so, everything was a problem, Everything was a problem.
He's such a curmudgeon. And I think I talk about it in the book because a lot of actors feel powerless in life. And I think so when they get in a place, like after a little filming is in the can, and they feel like they can throw their power around, they do so. And to some extent, he does that.
Well, I think it's when they feel disrespected. I really do with their time. And people don't think like, about it. Yeah.
I did a Western with him. I'm very privileged to have done 3 glorious Westerns, one with Sam Elliott and 2 with Tom Selleck, and it was in that period where TNT were the only people doing Westerns, and they were really cool stuff, written by Elmore Leonard and Louis L'Amour, and really cool stuff. And so I was doing one with Wilfred, and he got it into his. Admittedly, the PAs always knock on your door when you're defecating. I mean, that's just a rule. And
can't you say in the bathroom? You have to be so specific.
Well, I thought that was a cleaned up version. You don't want to say number 2 or something, but they're always knocking on the door and calling you to the set just when it's most inopportune. And so he got it into his head he didn't want anybody knocking on his door. And
well, how would they get to him?
Well, he said, I just want to come in, get dressed, and go to the set. Okay. Then he got it into his head that he didn't want his name being said on the walkie-talkie.
This is crazy.
It was really crazy. And then,
he's not well known.
By the way, you're talking about a guy with a really great movie pedigree, but like it slows down for everybody. I think Tom Selleck got him the job, or he wouldn't have been working. But the bottom line,
Blue Bloods is a bigger success, honestly, than Magnum was.
Well,
it's been on longer.
Yeah, Michael Brandman was the producer of these westerns with Tom Selleck.
It was a series of them, right?
Well, they did 3, and I did 2 of them. And Michael Brandman was one of the most tasteful, fair guys I've ever met as a producer. And so Wilfred would go to him every day and say, the jet planes go both ways. So he's threatening to walk off the picture.
Oh, he did that on Eternity, too.
Yeah, it's all bluff. Anyway, so Wilfred, I went out, and these are early days of the computer, and I got a T-shirt that had a picture on the front of a Western scene cactus with a plane going over it. It says, the planes go both directions. And on the back, I said, has anybody seen the artist formerly known as Wilfred Brimley on the back? And I gave everybody on the set
he must have
T-shirt.
That was he there, or did he?
Oh, yeah, he's there.
And what did he?
Well, he goes, I did movies when they didn't have walkie-talkies. I said, Wilford, you did movies when they didn't have sound. So...
Did he laugh?
Yeah, he laughed. He was just giving a little bit of, what's really interesting about him, though? My kids who are 22...
Don't know him?
No, they know him... From the Liberty catheter ads. I have the diabetes. They know him from those ads, which is really
I know. You know what I remember the first time I saw him was in 79 in the China Syndrome.
He's a fun actor. And he did his thing.
But I think he would have had a bigger career if he wasn't so...
Probably. I think those things tend to come back and bite you in the bum.
I do too.
A lot of those people.
I could never behave like that. I really couldn't.
Well, you either have a sense of craft and a sense of decorum. The people I admired were like Sir John Gielgud, who were always known for their manners and their sexual craziness as well. But,
Did he ever come on to you?
No, I never worked with him, but I certainly was aware.
Worked way into
the
his
closest
90s.
I got to Olivier and those guys, I did a play with Sir Laurence Olivier's son.
Oh, my gosh.
Richard Olivier. But I worked with guys like Guy Hamilton and Tony Richardson. These are epic British directors, and Nicholas Roeg, guys who were visionary. Did he just die?
Yeah, yesterday.
Oh, God, because he was going to write a blurb for Volume 2. He loved the book. And
Who cares?
No, I know he was in ill health. But I didn't realize he passed. Is that true?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, folks, he was one of the great... They're still catching up to Nicholas Roeg's work. In the 60s, he was doing stuff that they're just beginning to do in videos now. Music videos. This guy, I really recommend Don't Look Now, one of the scariest and sexiest movies ever
I've
made.
never seen that film, and I should really
Brilliant.
see it.
One of the sexiest.
I've seen almost everything.
Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland's sexy movie. Performance with Mick Jagger and Nina Van Pallant. The Man Who Fell to Earth with David Bowie.
Candy Clark, who's become a friend who did the show recently, was telling me all about that.
That must be so neat.
Just
I met the other day.
You should hire her to work with you.
I'd love to work with her. I met Joanna Cassidy and started talking to her.
I met her recently at somewhere too. What a great gal.
Yeah, and I said, I love how you smash through windows. Because in Blade Runner, she got killed and she crashed through multiple...
Joanna Cassidy? I don't remember that.
Yeah, she plays a cyborg in...
I forgot.
In a replicant.
I would love to do stuff like that. And I was hoping...
I like doing them once or twice. New stuff. That's great. I did so many fights, that got old. But blasting through a window with two guns, that's great.
I did a film recently, and I know my part is already going to be cut, called The Infiltrator, so don't look for me in it. And I was playing an ICE agent. And it was the first time I
just played a Border Patrol guy, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
First time I got into a film where I'm wearing the whole thing, and I got a gun, and I learned how to shoot a gun on Birth of a Nation, though they never used it, but I learned how to do it with a musket. I was scared half to death.
A musket?
Because it's 1831. You got
the
thing.
Okay.
I guess there's a whole process, and God, all day.
Yeah, I have one I've never fired.
Oh, dear God.
From the 1700s.
Yeah. So I'm in the thing, and I'm in the car, so the stunt guy is playing my partner, in the car. He's driving so fast. I didn't realize he was going to... I got so nervous.
You got a car.
Well, he's in a truck.
18 whatever.
It's like a truck,
But the gun was from the 1800s.
No, that was the first gun I did. And then I got another regular gun, just a rifle, that I had to learn how to hold and everything for The Infiltrators. I had two scenes. First scene was cut the day before I shot it. And the second scene, you could barely, whatever. So, but the thing was really great is that I got to do this, and I'm in the car, and I'm in the truck, and I'm driving, and he's driving it so fast, I'm a nervous wreck, a Jew in a car. Oh my God, and I couldn't get my safety belt off, and I couldn't get the door open, and thank God that they were doing this long Scorsese shot to get to me, because I had time to figure out how to get out of the car before the camera was on me. And then I'm running out of the car, and I finally learned to do it, and then after a while, I didn't care how fast it was going. It wasn't scary at all, but I was scared shit. And I had to look, get out of the car, I had to do your voice. I just pretended I was you.
Have you ever gone out and shot to learn how to shoot?
In Birth of a Nation, we did that. I did with the muskets. Yeah, I never had it.
Kind of
But then they
gutsy
decided
naming something after Birth of a Nation in an age of diversity.
Well, the reason it's the Nat Turner story, and it's about taking back the title, and that's what that's from. So it's really sort of it is sort of gutsy and sort of fuck you in a way. This is our story. You can't tell it. And I think because that film was such a terrible film at the time, it really recreated the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, it was like an entrance exam to learn how to be a racist, because the Ku Klux Klan in history at that time was going down and down and down and down. When the film came out, all of a sudden members went up, I think like 1 million people. It was quite a terrible
it was very much a political force at that juncture, because I remember they had a march in 4 million, but it turns out that they actually had them come around and they were using the same guys to march down the thing.
Oh, I'm sure.
My my grandfather was in the KKK.
Really?
Yeah, my dad's from Louisiana, and
how does that feel? Weird, huh? Just to even think about it.
No, I grew up as an adult after 1964, so the Voting Rights Act of that time, and my father actually put 50 African American young men and women through college, paid all their expenses as the chairman of the board and president and chief executive officer of Signum. My dad was an amazing guy. He was a World War II Silver Star recipient. He was an underwater demolition team guy, the precursor to the Navy SEALs. He struck out George Bush to win the National Collegiate Baseball Championship.
What was your dad's name?
Robert Donald Kilpatrick Jr.
And you can read about him. You can read about him in this book, I'm sure, called "Dying for Living."
He was an extraordinary 6'6", 250 pounds.
Volume 1.
Finest man I've ever known.
Written by Patrick Kilpatrick, and you can get this on Amazon, and Amazon probably is the easiest way to get it.
Well, Amazon.com for digital and hardcover, Barnes & Noble's for for hardcover. Soft cover will be out in about 2 weeks, and then the audio version. I've got a whole bunch of signings around LA, San Francisco, Sacramento coming, Vegas, January.
Let me know. I will come and I will buy the volume 1.
Well, you'll have to come.
You have one in Los Angeles.
When we're in LA, I have some of my celebrity friends come down, so it becomes more of a show.
Well, it'd be nice if you invited me.
I will. And please do. And you'll meet some, because I've got a little bit of PT part of in me, so I try to make it a show. Above.
Let me ask you the question that, of course, everybody wants to know. What's the Tom Cruise experience? How was that working with Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg?
Well, anybody who reads the book will know, either volume, will know that I tell my truth about whoever these people are.
Because he's sort of an enigma. And sort of probably.
I don't think Tom is such an enigma. I will tell you this.
I think he is.
Tom is. He's a superb gentleman, and I'm not saying a lot of people. Oh, they're wonderful and all that because they want to continue to work with him.
He has that reputation.
He's a superb gentleman, very incredibly, probably the most next to me dedicated person to delivering the goods in whatever he's doing that I've ever met. I mean, when he does an action movie, and of course Minority Report is an action movie, he is tremendously dedicated to every bit of it becoming an immensely good product. He's very insightful, very kind. My kids would come to the set, he'd make sure they were positioned well to watch the action and to call action, a very nice guy. I don't understand the Scientology, and I know a fair amount about Scientology.
Well, he doesn't. I don't think he spoke very little about it publicly, and then he did. It was just. I think there was only one point in his career when he's talked about it a bit, and that was when he divorced his wife. I think, and Nicole Kidman, that one, and that's when it's come up, and that obviously, from what she says, that was the reason for the divorce, because the kids now don't speak to her because she's considered. There's a word for that. I forgot what the word was. She's a bad person because she's not a Scientologist, and they can't associate with people.
Scientology is relentlessly cultish.
Yeah.
And,
but that has nothing to do.
And I know a lot about them because I went.
But he obviously works with people that aren't, and has a whole career, and married women that were not.
He's actually very helpful to anybody who's going through any travails, but he would put the advice in the context of Scientology.
I never even understood the whole jumping on the couch and why that was such a big deal. I thought, oh, this is cool. He's like, how funny and how exciting. And I never understood.
Exuberant. That's all.
I never understood why that was such a. I never got that. I understood certainly dissing Brooke Shields on a show and saying that she's crazy for having postpartum.
You have to
depression.
understand.
I never think to say anything about women because I'm not a woman. So.
They're spitting the party line. Scientology came about in the 60s, and Ron Hubbard found that there were so many people involved with drugs at the time that they were not able to receive, in my opinion, the cultish dogma.
Well, it changed, I think, over the years, don't you think?
Yes, well, but Scientology to this day is modeled on L. Ron Hubbard's life. For example, smoking is not considered a bad thing because L. Ron Hubbard smoked. But drinking, particularly during the Purif period, which was what they developed to get people off of these drugs, to get them into the dogma of the church, was considered a no-no. So to me, who comes along and he's his own person.
But he's deceased, so I think when someone dies who's the head of an organization, certainly the next person's personality, whoever takes over next, it changes a bit. It evolves.
Has changed, but the dogma hasn't. You know,
they said recently that they had
has the dogma of Jesus Christ.
Oh God,
changed? Yeah, it has, but you're still talking about dealing with.
Dr. Laura said the other day that homosexuality in the Bible, Leviticus, is an abomination, and then someone else went through all the other things that are an abomination. It's not just us. There's a lot. If your daughter talks back to you, you have to stone her. You know, if somebody does dealings in business, there's so much. I mean, the list is so long of who is an abomination and who has to get stoned and killed for this.
Scientology hasn't changed as far as cigarettes and alcohol.
But obesity, he was
also anti-drugs,
right?
Because people high on drugs and psychotropic drugs interfered with L. Ron Hubbard's ability to indoctrinate people.
But I'd also heard that people in the organization in the last couple of years, I guess, homosexuality was also a bad thing, and you were not to be it. And
of course, they're the most unsensual group of people you've ever seen.
And then it didn't exist, and now they made a statement and said we've evolved as the world evolves.
Scientology?
Yeah, there was a statement made around 2 years ago saying that it's no longer that. And the same thing with black people being involved in it. Yeah. And the same thing where,
I never found the racial component to be too much. So I went up there. Most people...
Well, we think black people had enough control in their lives. They didn't want to go to an organization that's going to be even more control. I don't think it was a thing that would appeal to them, in living in this kind of environment.
Most people come to a group like that because they're lost. They've lost someone that they adore. Their parents have died. They're brokenhearted.
Or financial. A lot of things that took care of them. That's what Leah Remini's mom said, that she came to it because she's divorced. She had 2 daughters. She didn't have a career. And these people would say, hey, come, we want to help you. This is a better life. And it seemed that way. And I think that there have to be good components to any of these religions. Otherwise, why would you?
It gives certain people who don't have that individual strength a roadmap for common sense.
What do you think about the idea of, and I'll segue into this, of aging in our business? As a man, well, Tom Cruise now is he's like he's probably around 55, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And he has had some surgery, you can tell, and he's sort of nipped and tucked and puffed and whatever you got to do. And what do you think about that for a man? Do you think that just keeps trying to stay in that lane of being this action star and looking a certain way?
For me personally,
and having the women so much younger.
I don't divine people like that. I mean, if I look at people like James Mason or Robert Mitchum and people like that, they were men, and they don't necessarily...
Well, Clint Eastwood, perfect example.
Embody that necessity. I think plastic surgery and all those things are cool as long as they're done with a supreme aesthetic values, and they're done in a manner that doesn't look grotesque. There's nothing wrong with that.
I think it's ended a lot of people's careers more than it's kept them going myself.
Well, yeah.
Because you become a part of what I call the duck people. It's a race now almost of these people, and it's men and women.
Yeah.
I think God bless him, but I think it killed Burt Reynolds' career. I mean, it made him look strange. It killed Kenny Rogers' career. It killed Goldie Hawn's career. It killed Meg Ryan's career.
I saw Goldie the other day. She looks pretty damn good for a woman in her 70s.
Yeah. But she's, when you look a certain way, you have a head of a 40-year-old and you're 70. How can you be somebody's real parent? It doesn't.
And also, she was wonderful in Snatched with Amy Schumer.
Well, she's to me gifted. It was sad to see her go away. Honestly.
Yeah, but how much? I don't think that's due to plastic surgery. I think it's due to times go away, and you've got to have a place. Look, last night I was watching Alan Arkin and Michael Douglas
and
Kaminsky Method.
What'd you think of the series? I watched the whole thing.
Well, I think it's
weekend.
Really great because it's a great representation of what guys are going through at that particular age.
I thought so too. And they're 10 years apart, I think.
I also thought how brilliant the acting is. The two of them are wonderful.
I was amazed at, how engaged I was in them, even more than the story itself.
Yeah.
I was so engaged in watching them. And so engaged in their work and their performance, and so happy to see them.
Yeah, I mean,
especially Alan Arkin.
Alan Arkin is he's a treasure. That guy is awesome. It's like different, but it's like Eli Wallach. It's just the best.
Well, my favorite people are character actors, men and women.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite character actor, women wise? Who did you love? Mine would start with Geraldine Page.
Ellen Barkin.
Ellen Barkin is just...
She was an animal. She
still
would
is.
Eat you alive.
She's on Animal Kingdom now, playing the mother in that. And she's like...
See, I admire that in actresses.
So do I.
She took some time off to become a billionaire by marrying...
I think it's because... I think she said it in some interview that... Jerry Weintraub, God bless him, brought her back to play Al Pacino's wife in one of the Ocean's films.
Sea of Love.
Well, that was before, but he brought her back for Sea of Ocean's whatever in the early 2000s, and it resurrected her career because I think she had hit a certain age and it dried up for her. I was looking at her the other day. I was just looking at her because she had said something on Twitter, and I thought, this is weird. It's the end for me.
Well, this is what I'm saying. For God's sake,
I loved her.
We don't need no more victims. Come on. There's plenty of diversity here. You got white actors that can't even get out now because there's so much diversity. You look on television.
But it's still, you have, no matter what you say, it's still not even.
Every couple on
so
TV is biracial.
Then
you've got Chinese kids being born like
I will give you
spores.
the facts, okay? Because I'm on the diversity committee at Screen Actors Guild After, and every year they do a pie of the diversity. White men still have the biggest chunk by way more than others. We'll see what happens next year.
Well, white people is the largest demographic of people. Black people is 13% of the population. Do you think...
So I would think it's probably 50-50 if you go white men and then everyone else, probably, I would guess. American Indians, Middle Eastern.
God, come on, that's changed a lot.
Asian.
Women running action films left, right, and center.
It's only 4% of women directing last year.
Well, the directing thing, I understand. Yeah. I would have loved
We'll see what happens this year.
Work with more women directors.
Well, maybe you will.
I've worked with two of them in my career.
Ryan Murphy started the 50-50, which Frances McDermott sort of said, the idea of, on the sets for it to be 50-50. A lot of people are going to lose jobs because of that, and they're going to be mad. It's sort of what's going on in the country, just the idea, and I wonder where, as
I'm
Jewish...
playing devil's advocate.
Where do I fit in as a Jewish gay man that's white? Where do I fit into this? How,
you're doomed.
I think so. It seems like...
No, the question becomes: look, I'm going to get myself into. I'd really like to look at the data.
Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great if we just got the part if we
actually split to have children or choose to bolt at age 32, 33.
I can only tell you from women that I know. And I know a lot of straight women.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I've been hit on by women more than I've ever been hit on in my entire life. In the last 10 years, I don't know why. And
well, the same is true for me, and I don't quite know why either. It's shocking to me on a certain level.
I don't put out that vibe that I'm interested in women.
I think it's because they know that you've mastered work on some level.
I guess so, but a lot of women think that I'm straight who don't know me, so it's really strange. But I'll say that most women want to work more, and they feel women over 40.
All actors want to.
I don't hear that from men in the same way, but
maybe
over a certain age, I don't hear that way. And I feel like...
and there was an imbalance there that needs to be addressed.
And certain people...
What I'm saying is sometimes there's mitigating circumstances in the statistics. I've been through a divorce. I don't know if you have. But if the rules for divorce were made by old white men, I don't know what they were thinking. Because they're definitely skewed in the...
Oh, no, now that's changing, I think. You got divorced a long time ago, right?
Well... 2003.
Yeah, it's really changed since then.
I don't think that can get... My point is, I hope we can move into a period where there's not a lot of victims.
Well, it would be great if experience mattered. As I'm getting older, that's what I would...
because you're probably at the height of your powers.
Oh, yeah. Actor. I feel more powerful now than I've ever felt, and I feel more educated and more... confident and more just the level of who I am as a man is showing through my work, and I feel like wow. I remember Jessica Lange when she was in her 40s.
She's doing great work.
She did the film Blue Skies, which is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones. Kind of
both were brilliant in it.
Modeled on my mother. Oh,
mine too. That sort of feminine woman, take care of me. And she said after that, I'm at the best point of my career now. I'm better than I've ever been, and I can't get a decent job. And it took Ryan Murphy to reinvent her career, to give her the kind of work to do. And then she went back to the theater and did things. And wow, she went and did Long Day's Journey into Night in London, then brought it here. And then she did Streetcar, and everybody dissed her because she didn't have a voice for theater. And then she did it, on television. And she just kept going.
That's why I'm talking about the tapestry. Actors and creative people in general always need to be creating their own work.
I think so.
In whatever way that they can. I'm either trying to raise money for a movie or trying to elevate a movie I was hired for as an actor, or I'm writing these books. You got to have your own thing that is not at the vagaries of the world.
So I'm going to urge everyone to buy the book by Patrick Kilpatrick, which is easy to remember, Dying for a Living, Volume 1 and 2. I have Volume 1 right here, which I'll be reading, and then Volume 2 I will be buying when you come to LA and you do a book signing. You can get this on Amazon. What all you got to do is probably put his name in it, put Dying for a Living, and you'll be able to find it. And I really suggest that you pick up the book. This is a good guy, and he needs to... become just a little more liberal, and then I like him better.
Let me add to that.
And we're done here for today. Thank you so much for being on the show, Patrick.
No, we're all on a conversation, and we all need to pay attention to each other. It's very funny when you're talking to me about your travails, and I can assure you, despite the fact that I've worked a lot, it's hard. This life that we've chosen for ourselves is not easy on a lot of levels, psychologically, physically, a lot of things.
It's completely ridiculous to think that any of us thought that we could make a living doing out of this.
Well,
it really is.
I did it calculately. I looked at Sean Connery, and he started late in life, and Danny Aiello, and...
I started early. So, this is where I am. I got up early. I started when I was 8 or 9 years old.
Wouldn't you agree to this? Your journey has been... I hope that you have the notion that your journey is the one that God, destiny, the universe, whatever you want to call it, intended for you.
I don't believe that 100%. I believe that God had a journey for me, but people got in the way and fucked it up.
Well, I hope that you find resolution for that.
No, I you know what? I am very...
Because my life is not necessarily as it's articulated in the book. I had a broken back that they almost said I would walk again. I wasn't expected to live at birth. My mother was mentally ill.
I wasn't expected to live either. I almost died. I lost all the water in my body when I was 3 months old, and I almost died. Yeah, and so that's funny. We have that same in common.
We all have these challenges, and
I kid around, but I lament sometimes. But I am for who I am and what I came here and the time that I grew up in. I'm incredibly lucky.
I had superb movies,
you
can't get financed,
you know.
So that's my travail.
Well, I'm waiting for you to call me, and I live 5 minutes from you. I could be at your house in 2 minutes.
I could throw a rock at your house.
You should come over just for a little party.
I will.
But we don't dress at the party. That's all. Anyway. Just a little. It's a little fun. Anyway, I'm just teasing and I'm busting his balls.
I would probably do that just as fodder for volume 2.
Dying for Living. Please get the book by Patrick Kilpatrick, my buddy, my neighbor, and check out his movies too.
By the way, if one of your audience wants an autographed copy, what we've got coming up for signings is Dark Delicacy in the Valley, Burbank, Barnes and Nobles. Santa Barbara Chaucers. What else we've got? There's a whole bunch of things. Stay tuned on Facebook or Instagram or
do you have a website?
Twitter. Yeah, patrickkilpatrick.com. Now, that's the reason I wanted to mention that is if you can't attend a signing, just go to patrickkilpatrick.com. It'll tell you how to get a book signed by me, and I'll personalize it for you. Great stocking stuffer. You see that red on the cover? That's going to blast right out and go with your stockings.
And this picture kills me. Anyway.
My son, I'll tell you a brief little story. He's the most wonderful young man. He's the #1 student at California College of the Arts. We know this because he wins the jury prize every year. But he
Proud Papa.
He said, "Dad, don't use that photograph." And I said, "Why?" And he said, first of all, he said, no straight male will buy that book. That turns out to be not true. And he says, finally, he said, because your eyes look like you want to fuck me.
All right. On that note, Patrick Kilpatrick, thank you so much for being on this show.
Thank you for having me.
Until next time.
We'll come back for volume 2.
Yes, we will. Everyone, take care and thanks so much. Until next time.
Happy holiday.
Bye-bye.